Hi.
Greetings. We're in Genesis chapter 47 now. Jacob's family has just settled in Goshen, and Jacob is more or less reconciled with living the rest of his life, however long, in Egypt, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have Joseph introducing his father to Pharaoh. So we're just going to read a few verses because there's some really precious stuff in here.
Okay. So
Verses 7 to 10, is it?
Yes.
47, 7 to 10.
Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage." So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh.
So you might be struck by the fact, why does Pharaoh lead off with a question about how old he is? We don't usually lead off with that question, do we?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he was rather surprised at the appearance of Jacob, who, just knowing what life he had, we know a lot more than Pharaoh did, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It would wear you down. This man is 130 years old. He doesn't yet know that he's going to live another 17 years in Egypt.
He's also, the thing that I hadn't thought about is that he starts having a family when he's much older than most men would have been.
Yeah.
So, when he leaves his home, he's already a mature man.
An older, mature man. That
Yeah.
is, he doesn't seem to start having his children until he's in his late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah.
So he's like his father, Isaac, and his grandfather, Abraham, in this miraculous aspect of his life.
So Pharaoh might have just been surprised at his age.
Yeah.
Given he knows Joseph.
He's only
and
39.
Joseph was the youngest.
Yeah.
So it's like when people meet us, they're sometimes surprised
At Max's age.
Yeah, at Max's age, because we were older when we had him.
Well, that would explain Pharaoh's question, very, very direct question. But it's Jacob's answer that's amazing here. The years of my sojourning, pilgrimage. So he uses an expression most of us wouldn't use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Travel, wandering, I guess we could put in there, right?
Which
the years of my
was most of
wandering
his life.
are 130 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, "Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers, in the days of their sojourning." So he's picking up the family thread here, namely that all three of them, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, have been wanderers despite the promises of God about the promised land.
Yeah, yeah.
And few and evil, though. But then we know the history, so we kind of know why he would say this.
He's a half-empty glass person, not a full glass. So it's all in your perspective. It's all in what you look at and what you concentrate on.
Mm-hmm.
How you view your life. I mean, this is very pertinent to us as ex-witnesses, I would say. Because when you leave, you do feel like life is miserable. When you first leave.
Or you've wasted it.
Yeah. So there's that pain, the suffering, the frustration. And if you continue to focus on it, you're going to be a half-empty person. You're not going to see blessings that are also in your life.
Unlike his son, who, if anything, has suffered more than Jacob did.
Yeah.
Because 22 years of his life, he's only 39 at this point, and 22 years of his life has been spent
in
slavery in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So does it get worse than that? Well, it's, again, in the perspective, because when Joseph is talking about all of this, he's seeing the hand of God everywhere, in everything.
Yeah.
Even his suffering.
Yeah. And at the end of, you'd have to say that's true, at the end of Jacob's life, he does start to see that he acknowledges that God has always been with him, right?
Yeah, listen to this. We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but in chapter 48, when he's blessing Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, he says this, in poetry no less. Most of this is not in poetry, but this section is. The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life, all my life, until this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys, and in them let my name be carried on, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Well, this is at the end of his life, so he's now 147, and he sees things a lot differently than he did when he came into Egypt.
Yeah.
He's had 17 years to weigh all of this, like Joseph had in prison, I guess.
So, I mean, I think at this point he's looking at all the negatives, but he had definite blessings. You know, wherever he went, whatever he did, he saw blessing. And everyone said, not just himself, but everyone said, God is with him and blessing everything he does, everything he puts his hands to.
Even Laban, his what can we say, devious relative?
Yeah.
His father-in-law, yes, he observed that God was with Jacob, but Jacob doesn't seem to have always been of that conviction.
And he had so many children, so that's a blessing, the fruit of children. Other blessings he had, God's protection in really difficult situations.
When he thought he was going to die.
He had the appearance of God talking to him. I mean, these are wonderful blessings, but he concentrates on all the negatives, it seems.
He doesn't know at this point, apparently, that Joseph and the rest of the Israelites in Egypt, his descendants, are not going to have one blessing he had more than once, which is a personal visit from the Lord to reassure him. One of them happened just as he enters Egypt.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that that's going to be at the end. And it's not going to happen again, apparently, until Moses in the burning bush.
Yeah.
So hundreds of years are going to go by. And when you think of what Jacob had, you think, how ungrateful. But on the other hand, if you were Jacob living this life, you probably would feel differently.
I'm oftentimes a half empty person. I have to admit that.
I think we all
I have to stop and
like
think about all the great blessings that I have had.
Well, when we think back a few chapters to the interaction between the sons and the steward and Joseph in Egypt when they're going back and forth, and he says everything's against me. I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
What's our link?
No, we had a couple of good quotes we wanted to read.
Here's the Jewish author Nahum Sarna. This is quite miraculous, I think, because a lot of people don't think this way about Israel. Certainly a lot of Jews I have seen are into doing what Jehovah's Witnesses do with the history of Jacob, let's say, or Abraham, and vindicate them against...
Make him a hero.
Make him a hero of the story, which is obviously not written to make him a hero. The narrative's about Abraham and Jacob, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to admire what they do. But many of the rabbinic commentaries do that, just as Jehovah's Witnesses must make Jacob into some kind of hero. But listen to what Nahum Sarna, himself a rabbi, says about this very account. The biographical details of Jacob's life read like a catalogue of misfortunes. When he was finally able to make his escape and set out for home after 2 decades in the service of his scoundrelly uncle, he found his erstwhile employer in hot and hostile pursuit of him. No sooner had this trouble passed than he felt his life to be in mortal danger from his brother Esau. Arriving at last at the threshold of Canaan, Jacob experienced the mysterious night encounter that left him with a dislocated hip. His worst troubles awaited him in the land of Canaan. His only daughter, Dinah, was violated. His beloved Rachel died in childbirth, and the first son she had borne him was kidnapped and sold into slavery, an event that itself initiated a further series of misfortunes. All the foregoing makes quite clear Scripture's condemnation of Jacob's moral lapse in his treatment of his brother and father. In fact, an explicit denunciation could hardly have been more effective or more scathing than this unhappy biography. So in that position, Nahum Sarna, a Jew, is far more realistic about what the narrative's trying to say than are Jehovah's Witnesses, who try to make it that Jacob and his mother acted rightly in deceiving his father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have Maclaren, is it?
Alexander Maclaren says, the interview of Jacob with Pharaoh is pathetic and beautiful. The old man comports himself in all the latter history of Joseph as if done with the world, waiting to go. Let me die, since I have seen thy face, was his farewell to life. He takes no part in the negotiation about Goshen, but has evidently handed over all temporal cares to younger hands. A halo of removedness lies around his gray hairs, and to Pharaoh he behaves as one withdrawn from fleeting things, and by age and nearness to the end, superior even to a king's dignity. As he enters the royal presence, he does not do reverence, but invokes a blessing upon him. The lesser is blessed of the better. He has nothing to do with court ceremonials or conventionalities. The hoary head is a crown of honor. Pharaoh recognizes his right to address him thus by the kindly question as to his age, which implies respect for his years. The answer of the Hebrew Ulysses, as Stanley calls him, breathes a spirit of melancholy, not unnatural in one who had once been uprooted and found himself again a wanderer in his old age. The tremulous voice has borne the words across all the centuries and has everywhere evoked a response in the hearts of weary and saddened men. Look at the composite parts of this pensive retrospect. Life has been to him a pilgrimage. He thinks of all his wanderings from that far-off day when at Bethel he received the promises of God's presence. In all places, whither thou goest, till this last happy and yet disturbing change. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's hope for us. We can change too, even in our latter years and our perspectives, and they're really the source and root of our happiness, aren't they?
Yeah.
Our perspectives.
Yeah.
It's not the external circumstances; it's how we handle them.
Just when we get wise, we get old.
Yeah. What's our link?
We're linking 2 videos. One is called Time Heals JW Wounds.
That was a video we shot with Max, wasn't it?
That's right.
When we were moving here.
First moved here, yeah.
In our empty old house.
Yeah. And the second one was a video reviewing the book, The Gift of Suffering, that I did, that had great impact on me when I was suffering.
Based on F.B. Meyer's book, right?
Yes, to help me to kind of make sense of pain that I was going through. Mm-hmm.
See you soon.